I'm here as a representative of the Roma network, and I just want a little bit to say to you who we are, and as well what are some of the things that we are finding out that God has been doing throughout Europe among the Roma people. So Roma Network is a network that has a vision to network, connect, and research, and it's for the sake of sharing the gospel and seeing the transformation in the Roma communities. And we are wanting to connect and create a huge platform in whole Europe for the Roma ministries, NGOs, and different organizations to connect together and really speak out, give the voice what are their needs, and to see how we can connect with each other and meet those needs. So I want to just a little bit to tell you a little history of who the Roma are and like a short history of the revival, what was happening in Europe. So the Roma, there are around 12 million and maybe more in Europe, and if we would look at them as one country, they would be the 10th largest country in Europe. And they are very open for gospel of God. There is widespread of conversion, and I was just looking at some numbers of Roma who are converted in France and Spain, England, Romania, and there is around 1 million. But the numbers are definitely higher. There has not been mapping so far, but from this, what we know, we see that they are a huge force, and that really something big is happening among them. So we should not neglect those numbers, and as well especially like how they can influence society if we are contributing more in seeing what are their needs and how we can answer those needs. So if we are speaking about large-scale conversion revivals, in the 1950s there was a revival that started to happen in France, and that revival spread into Spain and later in all of the 50 countries from there. The movement is called the Light and Life, and something specific that they were doing, I will speak more about that later, is that they were finding the key persons, and they were training them and sending them to other countries, and as well like afterwards preparing and organizing theological and biblical education for the Roma. Then if we are looking a little bit on our part of the world, and we can see Bulgaria and Romania that started to have a big revival just after the fall of communism, and in Bulgaria there is around 800 Roma churches, maybe even more. In Romania, 2,000 Roma churches. And then when we are looking at our part of Central and Eastern and South Europe, we can see that there is really a lot, that there are pictures of revival happening that is about to emerge. And there is a lot of church planting happening with one example, exception of Serbia, where it all started some 30 years ago. In Central and East and South Europe, everything started to happen maybe some 15 years ago. So it's quite a lot of openness for the gospel of God. So we as a Roma networks, we wanted to really hear what do the Roma leaders think that their needs are, and what do they need help in. And so we started in the last year to organize regional European meetings and bringing key leaders together and really having action meetings and asking them, what do you see, what do you want to focus in the future, what do you need help in, and what is your vision for your nations, and what we can ask others to help you out in that. So I'm just going to now concentrate on Central and East and South Europe, from these regional meetings, one of the main things that came up was a biblical and theological training for the Roma people. And so they were saying like, we want to really focus on the next generation of the young leaders. We want to train them. We want to have a leadership and discipleship training, educational training for potential Roma ministers. And they have been as well saying there are different biblical subjects that we would like that these trainings would cover. And they expressed that it would be church planting, early marriage prevention, financial stewardship, courses of worship, children's education and youth ministry, and so forth. There is probably much more. If we are thinking of how the biblical theological education for the Roma would look like, of course, I'm adding a little bit now to what Brother Goran was saying. There are lots of challenges, and some of the challenges is that they are lower educated, although the situation is much better than in previous years, and more children are going to the high school, but the older generation are lower educated. And this, of course, is closing the doors for them to go to any of theological colleges and to be educated, because you need to have finished high school. So that is one of the challenges. Then another challenge is that they are young, marrying young, and they have young families as well. They often have a seasonal nature of work. It is as well very important for them to be connected within the community. So I think like it would not be appropriate to take them out of their community for, let's say, 3 or 4 years and then bring them back, because they would be very much disconnected. And sometimes we as well saw that maybe it would be hard to connect again with that community, and they would just stay there where they have been studying. So theological and biblical education is something that the Roma leaders said that it's very crucial for them in this region. And however, if we would like to continue talking about creating such a program, then we would need to take into account their particular culture and as well their socioeconomic and spiritual issues in the Roma communities. And through theology try to answer on those. As well, it would be very important that we involve a history of the Roma Christianity and as well a revival among them, and to make it as the story of global Christianity, because I think it deserves to be said and it's still not being made. So, as I said, there is example of Light and Life, theological and biblical education, and one thing that they have been doing is seasonal training, so a few times a year, and sometimes it would be concentrated around a certain place where the biggest need is. And something very important is that they were training Roma to be trainers and to be teachers, and that they could facilitate theology and missiology from the Roma perspective. I don't know.
Thank you very much.